Well, I am personally pleased to be joined by an old friend here inside the wind tunnel. He's the director of competition for Stewart Haas Racing and their field of Mustangs that compete in the Cup Series, as well as some Mustangs that they'll field in the Xfinity Series of NASCAR. We're talking about Greg Zipadelli, better known to his friends as Zippy. Zippy, it's a real pleasure to have you here inside the wind tunnel. Hope you are well.
I'm doing well. Just off a quick trip to the West Coast for the Clash, which was pretty exciting and fun. They did a spectacular job with organizing and just the way everything went off. It was I don't know that they could have done any better.
And yet it was also the maiden voyage for this next gen car. So the logical question would be, how much did you actually learn about these cars in that competitive form that you can then transfer to not only this weekend at Daytona, but also the West Coast swing and when we get into the meat of the 2022 schedule?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to take away from it is we all had to go through inspections. So we kind of finally, for the first time, saw the process and how they're going to do things and in what order, and how they're going to check stuff. And obviously they'll always switch that up, but at least, it was a lot of things that we were unsure of how they were going to do it. So, and then we did get a couple, three quick practices. So we were able to adjust on the car and see the sensitivity of it. When sometimes when you test, you go out, like we went to Phoenix and we had a pretty good test out there, had some good speed, but you don't really know where they are, what they're doing, tires, what they're working on. When you get to an event and everybody goes through tech and you go out and you practice, speeds are a little more relative to, the competition and the level of the competition. So from that aspect, the car adjusted. The guys did a good job adjusting on their cars. We all loaded probably a little too loose and we're able to get to where we had to, a couple of them were really good.
I want to raise the conversation up about 10,000 feet. So much has been said about this next gen car. And in reality, it's more of a real race car. And I'm going to quote one of your bosses, Tony Stewart, who said, finally, we have a real race car instead of a race car that it's got a pickup truck rear end to it or rear trailing arms. But overall, from your perspective, is it more engineering sensitive than the Gen 6 car? Or is it more about taking the parts and pieces, or as I say, the componentry, and maxing it out when you assemble it?
I think it's a combination of both, to be honest with you. There's definitely some more engineering and the thought behind it and the adjustments of things. And then other things are from the body and some of that stuff. It's a carbon fiber body, flange fit, bolts together. From that perspective is you still got to work really hard to get everything maximized and things, but it's just different. But there's still a lot of craftsman thoughts, process, all those things are still going to apply to this race car. Racers and hard work will still prevail.
When you left the Northeast to pursue your passion down in the South, things were dramatically different than they are now. Then you moved to Joe Gibbs Racing and certainly the success that you and Tony enjoyed. And then following Tony over and becoming the director of competition at Stewart Haas. It seems to me as an outsider looking in that the complexities could be overwhelming for someone like you. So I wonder how much of that, shall I say, inbred racing knowledge that you took from the Northeast down to the South still comes into play day to day with Stewart Haas?
Well, I think the most important thing, no matter what level of the sport we're in, what year, what decade of racing, it still comes down to people. It still comes down to, the people you have, the group that you can assemble, treating them the right way. And this new car will be nothing different other than trying to surround yourself with good, strong, positive people, trying to take everybody's ideas and putting them together to make the best recipe. So yeah, from some of the hands-on stuff of building all of our modifieds and the Busch North and Busch East cars, that's definitely changed, but the fundamentals of racing and still thinking about things and how to be better than others, is that will never change in our sport.
You still got your toolbox?
I do. I don't get I still have it.
Over the off season, you made a couple of moves that caught a lot of people's attention, and I've heard you specifically on Sirius XM radio addressing taking Booga and moving him over into the R&D side, hiring Ryan to be not only kind of your fill-in driver, but also working closely with Booga on the sim rigs because of the need to continue to build the knowledge base with this next gen car. Do you like what you've put together there? And can you help my listeners understand what Mike and Ryan and their staffs are going to be doing when you're at Daytona or at Las Vegas or at Bristol?
Yeah, so Ryan's a great young talent. Love the kid. Grew up, you know what I mean, and same area right down the street from where his dad was, and his father's involved in racing, been around a long time. And when you watch the kid from the outside, you'd consider him a really strong racer. He's a winner. He wins and closes the deal and everything he's been in but Cup. So I feel like if we can hopefully at some point surround him with a strong group of people, he'll have the same success here to some extent. So right now we're using him for just some testing, some validation. We're going to run some Xfinity races. I think he's got 2 Cup races. So there's a lot of good things for him coming. Booga is really strong technically and with our tools. So he's kind of helping with some of the day-to-day stuff there as far as trying to push the tools that we use to limits and continuing to progress them as fast as we can to stay with the competition, hopefully get ahead of the competition. Obviously that's what your focus and your goal is, but you want to be able to at least stay parallel with them as this new car is being developed and updates and to the sim and the simulator and all of those things that we use every day to try to make our cars faster. So he's done a really good job of jumping in and taking that vehicle dynamics group over, and it just strengthened our whole program.
All the top teams in NASCAR now are utilizing pretty much the same plan that we've seen in play with Formula One for many, many years. And that's while there's a group that go to the racetrack on race day, there's another group that are back in what I will call the war room. Can you pull the curtain back on the Stewart Haas war room and kind of explain, with the running of the Daytona 500 this weekend, what and who will be in the war room back there in North Carolina?
Well, every team has three engineers that support each car number. So and then we've got Booga and we've got Rex, and then we've got a vehicle dynamics group, which has a few more engineers in it. So for the most part, 1 to 2 engineers travel to the racetrack, mostly right now 1 because of the war room, and they're all sitting in there working together, just looking at data, watching the race and every if it's got in-car camera, they'll be up there. It'll be, just so they're just looking at just as much data as we can pull from the racetrack and get back here to the shop for these guys to just simply look and mine through and see what types of things can they send back to the racetrack, strategies, thoughts, adjustments, and now what, the 4 teams working closer together there, not that they didn't when they're at the racetrack, but when you're only sitting 4 feet away from somebody, it's easier to kind of have that communication, I think, than it is when you're in pit stall 2 in Daytona and pit stall 40 in Daytona. And there's a whole, there's a long ways between them. You know what I mean? So it seems to be working well. Like you said, every team is kind of utilizing it to some degree, some more than others, but it's definitely the future and the way we'll continue to go and continue to ramp that up. And as technology changes in our sport, and now that we have crazy thing but Wi-Fi the last few years, it's easier to transfer data back and forth to the shop, and so they can be looking at it basically real time, and we can too at the racetrack.
And then in the meantime, each and every race, I can see you going up and down pit road, up and down pit road. How much of a Dr. Phil do you have to play during the course of a race weekend, especially when the cars are out there? Because there's a lot of times where I can see the animated conversation you're having with one of your crew chiefs, and then you kind of walk away and your whole demeanor changes. It's sometimes I think you're Greg Zipadelli, Stewart Haas Racing's herder of cats.
Yeah, it's all you try to either encourage them if not having a good day, heard somebody else do something and it helped them. You go and you try to just communicate that. But there's a fine line because those guys, they have their thought process. They've worked through a lot of what they think is the changes in directions if their car's not where they want it to be. So be careful. You don't want to overload them with stuff that may get them second guessing themselves. So like I said, there's a balance of trying to give them things that are useful information, or if we're just simply having a problem and we're trying to problem solve something, then that's a completely different situation. You jump in and you do what you can to help.
Listen, you come a long way, my friend. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. Last question for you. Is it still fun?
It's a little bit more stressful, but it's still when the green flag drops and if you're competitive, it's a ton of fun to try to maintain this large group of what we have right now today and try to compete at the highest level.
Listen, it's a real pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by here inside the wind tunnel. And most of all, good luck to your entire team in the Great American Race taking the green flag this Sunday.
Thanks, buddy. Good talking to you.
Thanks, man.
Yep. Anytime.